Hi guys, and welcome back to the world of 28mm. I'm Adam, and in this week's episode we're going to be taking a look at some casting, specifically out of casting powders. Now I thought I'd share a few things with you before we go down to the table. You need to take a few things you need to take into consideration is the durability of your material and its weight. So if you'll find that some plasters are lighter than others. I've got a little fact sheet down here so I get all my numbers right. So a lot of the casting powders, they have different meganewtons per square meter. I believe that's right, mn/m square, yeah, meganewtons per square meter. So I've only ever worked with three different types of powders, which are Crystal, good old Plaster of Paris, and Herculite number 2. So each of these have a different meganewton per square meter, which means, you know, some are stronger than the other. You can put more compression onto one of, say, a rock mould, and the higher the meganewton per square meter, the more, you know, the harder wearing it will be. So I've got some numbers down here for you guys. If you're in the US, you're going to have, well, whichever country you're in, you're going to have other alternatives, but these are the three that I've used and I have experience in. All of this information you can find online. I've got a few of these from the manufacturer's data sheets and some of it off the actual bags themselves. Always follow the instructions. Okay, so first of all we're going to start with Plaster of Paris. Now the minimum compressive strength, and that's when it's 100% dry, so say 24 to 48 hours for the casting powder to be 100% dry. Plaster of Paris's minimum compressive strength is 13.7 meganewtons per square meter. It usually takes sort of 20 minutes to half an hour to harden up, and it's very cheap, it's very effective, but ultimately compared to the other two I'm going to give you in a second, it's not overly strong, but it is ideal because it's lightweight. So if you're going to travel with a board, if you make a big board or you make lots of scatter terrain with, say, Woodland Scenic rock moulds or something like that, then Plaster of Paris might be a good way to go because it's going to be a lot lighter than these other two. So next up we've got, so which is the next hardest, we've got Herculite number 2. Now this is a 100 to 42 ratio. It has a minimum compressive strength of 31.0 meganewtons per square meter. I will get that one, it's a bit of a tongue twister. And this would be a mid-range plaster, so it's going to be quite tough. It's also going to add to the weight because of that toughness. But they are very, the old Herculite bricks, unless there's a fault line in the rock mould or something, they are very hard to break. And if you can sort of hit them together and you can hear the density difference. Plaster of Paris will sound very hollow, whereas Herculite will sound a bit more solid. But as I say, the more durability you go for, the heavier things generally are going to be. So that's Herculite number 2. And then finally I've got my good old Crystal, Crystal R to be precise. So its minimum compressive strength when it's dry is 44.8 meganewtons per square meter. Okay, so that's compared to the other two. You had Plaster at 13, you had Herculite at 31, and now you've got Crystal at 44. That's, you know, a bit of a jump. It is overall, once again, going to add to more weight. So the Crystal powders, when you've cast them, are extremely tough. Okay, you could throw some of the thicker bricks against the wall and it would probably do more damage to the wall than it would to the Crystal. But you are adding heavily to weight. So with things like Crystal, you might be better off sticking that with dioramas that aren't going to be moved a lot. You know, they're set pieces. So that is it for the three powders I've used. That's the information. I will put some links and stuff below. If you've got any other questions about, you know, other dental stones or anything like that, leave them in the comments below and I'll aim to answer them to my best ability. Alright, so let's head down to the table and crack on. Okay, so I've got a few bits here ahead of me, in front of me even. So we've got a Woodland Scenic rock mould. This is C1230 outcroppings. So these are great little moulds. They're fantastic for doing little dioramas or just to put on your terrain. They are a bit uneven, so you can't just plant it down onto a flat surface. It moves because they're all different depths. So what I've got here on the top of the screen, you can see, is just some sand I've dumped onto an old plate that I use for mixing paint. And then we're just going to take our Woodland Scenic mould and press it into the sand. There. And that will just keep it nice and level for when you're pouring your mixture. Then over here I've got a trusty old Hirst art. If you haven't got any of these, I would go and check it out. They're amazing. I'll put the link to the website in the description below. As you can probably tell by that jump cut, I forgot one of my ingredients, shall we say. So you need some wet water. If you don't know how to make this, I will put a link up in the top corner. There's a video of how I make it. Go and check that out. So I've got some pre-made up here, all done. Oh, I'm holding it out of shot. So I've got some all pre-made up done there. I'm going to take some old card and just place it over the sand. This is just purely because I don't want to waste that sand if I can help it. So I'm just putting this there as like a buffer. So we're going to take an old paintbrush. Anything will do. You could use a cloth or anything. I had a paintbrush to hand. We're going to take our wet water and then we're just going to give this a little going over. Essentially what this will do is when you pour your plaster into it, it will just the wet water will enable all of the plaster to run into all the nooks and crannies, and you'll pick out all of that lovely detail. Okay, so that's all good. We'll put that to one side. I will take a bit of tissue paper and just soak up some of this excess. I went a bit heavy with the brush. Okay, so that's our mould ready to go. So I've got some regular water here, and I've also got about half a cupful. Now these are half pint plastic cups, so I've got about 1/4 of a pint of powder in there. Important when you're casting, always have a backup. That's why this is here. If I've done too much plaster, then obviously it's going to be a waste. So you're better off having something else that you want to cast close by. Just in case you've got too much, you can just quickly pop it in here and you've got an extra few sets of bricks. Okay, and a mixie stick. So I very rarely weigh plaster. It says like 100 to 35 ratio and things like that. I find I eyeball it better. So what I'll do is I'll make up a batch and then I'll show you what it looks like, so you can try and get a similar mix. So I've got, I'd say, what's that? Just under half a pint of just plain water there. Yeah, not too far. So I'm going to add, let's see, there. So I haven't really added a lot there. I'm going to do it little by little. Yeah, see, that's not enough. There. I'm going to lift this up. I'm sorry if it goes out of shot, but I want to get a good mix on this. So that's all mixed up now. Can you see how sort of runny it is? It's not super runny, it's got quite a thick feel to it, but it should just be perfect enough to run into all those nooks and crannies. You want to make sure you give it a good stir, get all that powder off the side. Now I'm starting to feel just a tiny bit of warmth coming through, so I'm going to get on and pour this before it starts setting. So we're just going to go over and slowly drop it into the mould. go. So I've done a little bit too much, so I'm just going to put some into here. Let's see, so we'll have some normal square blocks. Fancy little window there. Okay, right, so that's all set out. So I'm just going to put that onto one side. What we need to do is, this has got loads of air bubbles trapped in it at the minute, so we need to get those out. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to pull my plate a little bit off the table and I'm going to knock it from underneath. It might be a bit of a noise, so you might want to mute your headphones just for a second. So as you can see there, it's all settled nicely. Do the same to this one. Oh, that went flying everywhere. Got plaster of Paris on my glasses. So finally, what we need to do is we need to get all of these nice and smooth. Oh, there's a little bit. Can I get any more out there? Oh, that'll be fine. So we're going to scrape it now to make sure that we've got all the it's nice and flat. So I've just got an old bit of foam board here, and I'm just going to diagonally, which is important, go across the mould. And this is what my card was for. I don't want to get moisture or too much moisture onto the sand, because I don't want to waste any. There, we're getting a nice smooth. Oh, get that put back under there. And there we go. I'm going to pull that little buffer away. I'm going to put that over there. And that's our mould filled. So I'll just level off this Hirst Arts one as well, and then I'll come back when it's all dry. So these have had now ample time to dry. Essentially I've made, cooked, eaten dinner and had a cup of tea and some afters, so say a good couple of hours. So we're going to demould these now, and well, I'll do the Hirst Arts one first. Let's get rid of some of this. So let's pop out some of these blocks. Get rid of some of this excess flash at the same time. There we go. So we've got a nice little, shine this light round here a bit. See the detail it's taken? So we have got a few little air bubbles. So this will be an extra little lesson for this. Always make sure that you clean your moulds out prior to pouring, in between pours as well, because essentially what's happened here is there's dirt in this mould that I haven't cleaned out properly when, with my toothbrush. Not my toothbrush, but a toothbrush, and it hasn't quite got all the dirt out, so it's picked up some on the top of the brick there, and it's also left us with a couple of air bubbles, but that's not a problem. So we can see then, let's have this nice little window out. That came out nice and easy. There we go. So little gothic style window there, and with a couple of air bubbles again, just like in the tips and the corners. One there, and there's one on the top as well. So yeah, these few, they're only extras, so I don't mind if they've got air bubbles in, because they'll probably just be used for random things. But they've come out quite nicely, and nice and solid as well. So let's have a look at the Woodland Scenic. So we're going to take it off our little granite mount. Just leave any. There we go. Put that to one side. And then all I'm going to do is turn this upside down and pop them all out. Last one. There, so excuse me. Just get rid of all of this rubbish. Dun, dun, dun. So there, we've got some lovely little casts. See all the details that have come in the rocks? And because we've used the wet water on this one, we have got next to no air bubbles in there. We do have this little, what we refer to as flash. It was the same from the first moulding video. That's simple to fix. You can just snap it off with your fingers and it will conform to the shape of the rock. There. And we have some lovely rocks. And some lovely little bricks as well to go with them. Okay, so that is casting with powder. I'm going to clear all this up now, and I will see you in the outro. And there we go, guys. I hope you found this episode helpful. If you've got, like I said before, if you've got any questions or comments, please leave them down below and I'll aim to answer them to the best of my ability. And in the meantime, if you like it, if you've liked it, share if you think anyone else would like to see it, and don't forget to subscribe for the next episode. Have fun, guys.